This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hi, Carm Capriotto, the Automotive Aftermarket Podcast guy. Welcome to the 626th episode of Remarkable Results Radio. Do you see good in people when they don't? Do you have a heart for people that struggle? Do you try to pull out qualities from really good people? Well, if you answered yes to any of these questions, then you know what it's like to invest emotionally into friends, family, and employees. In this very transparent episode from Kevin Eckler from Foreign Car Specialists in Poughkeepsie, New York, explain a situation in his business that pulled at his heartstrings, but also hurt his business culture. Kevin takes you on a journey that changed him and his business. A very personal story. He had just heard that Apex 2021 again is going to have the best and the brightest trainers and another great schedule of technical and management training. Now, I'm talking specifically for shop owners and technicians. Stay tuned right here for more details. They're coming soon. But for now, make sure Apex 2021 is on your calendar, November 2nd through the 4th. I'll see you in Las Vegas. Hey, when was the last time you heard a customer say, "Thank you for taking my money"? Get Shopware, shop management software, and your customers will be shouting it from the rooftops in overwhelming 5-star reviews. Learn more at getshopware.com. Hey, find the key talking points for this episode at remarkableresults.biz/E626. Now, the podcast has grown to be a very important and influential part of the aftermarket and your personal networking. The industry has seen the benefit in the diverse content that we create for you each week so you can catch a wave of a great insight or an idea and make it your own. I hope you appreciate it, and I'm so grateful for your support. A warm welcome to my friend Kevin Eckler, Foreign Car Specialists in Poughkeepsie, New York. Hey, Kev.
Good morning, Carm.
So you were one of those crazy guys that left New York and went down to Disney, and you risked it all.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Incredibly worth it and a great time. People talk about the contaminated areas and where you don't want to go, but one of the things was once being there in person, it was incredible to see the almost excessive measures that they took to make sure that you were incredibly safe and as well protected as you could be. I've never seen so many hand sanitizer stations in so many places so close in proximity. Everything was very clearly laid out, heavily reinforced on safe social distancing. So no matter how many people were there, it was very accommodating and very welcoming and easy to follow the guidelines. So it wasn't like it was, you must be here and it was cold and unfriendly. They found ways to do it in very warm and welcoming ways that made you very firmly believe that everything was in your best interest. It wasn't follow the rules or else, but here's what we're doing to keep you safe, which I thought was a great measure.
What did you learn from it?
I would have to say that my biggest takeaways are that your approach to something is incredibly important. Selling the benefits of it and not reinforcing the rules. They sold the benefit. We want to keep you safe. We want this to be your most enjoyable experience that you could possibly have. We want to not make you feel like your vacation was very constricted and restricted and very limited, but here are so many different options that we can offer you for so many different ways that you could have fun or do something or engage while still being protected in the best measures possible.
Did you take anything back to your business because of that?
Absolutely. I've got to say, every time that we go down to Disney is not inexpensive. It was inexpensive when I was a kid and when they were building the empire, but they've always had a good value for what you're spending, and we have returned for years and years, and it has honestly gotten very expensive, and I continue to go because the way that I feel when I'm there, I feel very much cared for and accommodated. We take back all of that, the attitude in which they approach their guests. When something goes on, I had left a restaurant and forgot to put my face mask on. It wasn't, "Hey, you put your face mask on." Somebody walked up to me and said, "Hey, friend, did you forget? I don't know if you noticed." So it wasn't an aggressive approach. And they started out with, "Hey, friend," not, "Hey, you big jerk, put your face mask back on." It's all about how you approach people. And when you provide the right services, people spend money without any regret and look forward to the next time that they can go down and spend more money.
That's the big thing. They'll spend money without regret. It's almost like an attitude adjustment. Go to Disney to get yourself an attitude adjustment, right?
I have to say, I came back with non-buyer's remorse. I was in Star Wars land. And the big thing is, we've got Stormtrooper helmets and Death Trooper helmets and different stuff at the shop. Obviously, we very much enjoy that. And the whole time, like, should I buy a lightsaber? Should I not buy a lightsaber? Man, Red Leader helmet is on sale. And I withheld and I didn't come back with a suitcase full of all kinds of things. And I got home and I thought, man, I wish I had bought that. I wish I had done more, engaged more, spent more. So I'll be going back down again.
I bet you will. Every step along the way entices you to come back. We weren't here to talk about Disney, but thank you for this little side trip, because I can always count on you to give me a side trip or two on any of our discussions. You and I had a great discussion, and the essence of the discussion is what we're going to talk about today. And I want to ask our listener if they could relate to this, that it's easier to fix a car than a person, that you see good in people when they don't, you have heart for people who struggle, and finally, you try to pull out qualities from good people. And I'll bet you there's a ton of people shaking their head, and what does this have to do with Carm Kevin in this episode today? Because you have a story to share about all this.
I certainly do. And I would think that it's probably a very common story that not many people tell and not many people share. So my story and related to this is, you can see people for whoever they are, but I always try to see the best in people. There's good and bad in everyone. There's potential. There's incredible opportunities. And kind of like life is what you make of it. People can be whoever you project into them to be. If you're willing to take your time and effort and energy and invest into people, it's incredible how they will grow. Talents that they had inside of them that are raw and natural that they've never used before, they will find a love for developing that. They will just absolutely flower in, which may not be the right term to use in automotive. Let's flower. But they'll grow and excel when encouraged. Just kind of the same way that if you are always down on somebody that they're not good enough, they'll eventually give up and fail. But if you see something within somebody and you point that out to them, and when people have something recognized, they tend to focus on that. They tend to see the shining spot. If you're reminding them, hey, you did that great today. I really love your attitude. I see that you've got a great natural talent for that. And that's how I try to see our people. So that kind of synopsis goes back to a story of a young man named Ryan. To give you a background on Ryan, really nice kid, great personality, no self-confidence at all. So right next to our shop is an old train trestle, an old train bridge that crosses the Hudson River. It was the main freight line from the East Coast to the West, heading across out of New England and such. And due to a fire that structurally compromised it in the 70s, they no longer ran freight trains across it. With the idea of actually one of our neighbors and then getting a lot of rallying support behind it, they converted from an old train trestle into a walkway. They planked it, and now there's better than 1 million people a year that go back across on this, walking, roller skating, bicycling, and such. And one of the people that came across this bridge fairly frequently was a young guy named Ryan. Ryan was in New York State BOCES program, which is an automotive program. He had learning disabilities. He was classified as learning disabled, loved cars. When he is into something, he is passionately into it. And although he was classified with having certain learning disabilities, he just dug really deep into learning and absorbing every single thing that he could through this class. He actually graduated there and left with his junior ASEs in every single field. He had to work really, really hard to be able to achieve that because it's hard for him to learn to remember stuff. But he did. He put so much of himself into it that he was able to fully achieve all of those things, which really shows deep within him is a strong desire to not only be okay at something, but to excel in it. So Ryan would frequently go across the bridge, and I had no idea because he was just one of many people that crossed, and he would sit there and stare off the railing into the back of our shop, look at the different cars that we had coming in and out. We had some pretty decent stuff from time to time, and hear the noises, see the guys, see different things going on, because from the walkway, you can see right into the side bays of the shop. I guess he would often talk to his mom about, wow, that's really cool. I wish I could work there. That'd be a neat job. Look at all the cool stuff they work on. So he talked about it with his mom, but he never had the self-confidence or the courage to get up and say anything, come in and visit us or do anything. So one day, pretty much his mom had had enough of it, and she marched him right up to the front door of the shop, pretty much opened it up and said, "You're going in." In walks this young man who had zero self-confidence, staring down at his feet, talking softly and not really clearly enunciating everything that he said, had to say. But he finally got up the nerve to talk about the cars a little bit and then got up the nerve to ask if he could possibly have a job. And for a moment, he kind of looked up and then looked back down. And I could just sense that inside of him was incredible potential. You could really clearly see his body posture and language and everything said no self-confidence. But you could see in his heart the desire was incredible. I'm in this business because I love fixing things. I love taking things apart, understanding how they work, love figuring out and fixing people's problems. It's not like, hey, here's an opportunity where I can capitalize on somebody's unfortunate situation. I'm in this profession because I love helping people. I see it as an opportunity to help someone when they're in distress, to help them optimize their investment, to help. What I do, I feel, creates a better quality of life for people. I see in Ryan when he walks in, like, this kid has incredible potential. We talked about it and I offered him a job. And he came in and he kind of cleaned up a little bit and fumbled around a little bit and shadowed and followed me. He sucked up every single thing that I taught him. He was so interested. He asked questions that other people didn't question. Kind of like I was when I was annoying. Why? How does this work? What's that do? Why? And he just wanted to know. And he was into it. It didn't matter if it was somebody's daily commuter or if it was something exotic and cool. He wanted to know about it, which was great. So just like I like fixing mechanical things, I think I have a tendency to want to fix people. And Ryan was clearly something with incredible potential.
There's the key right there. You want to fix people. Did Ryan want to be fixed?
Ryan, I have to say, honestly, was open to any input or anything that people could give him that was in a positive way. It's kind of up to interpretation, but I think he was the kid waiting for the opportunity. Kind of like when we were in elementary school and you're playing kickball or dodgeball or anything, and you're sitting there on the sidelines and you just know that you can be good at it. And you're like, pick me. And, as they're going down there, I want Bobby. All right, I want Jim. And you're like, pick me, I can do it. And you just needed somebody to believe in him. It was something you could see in his eyes. When you give people opportunity to do something that they really want to do, you can see their face light up. You can see it in their eyes. They're going, thank God somebody finally got confidence in me. I finally had that chance.
You were getting as much out of this as Ryan was.
Oh, absolutely. To back up on the story of it, as I got to know Ryan, Ryan's his mom brought him to the shop. His parents had long since been divorced. His dad and he, when he was little, super tight. They did everything together. And then I don't know exactly what happened, but his parents' marriage didn't work and his dad was no longer in the picture. And Ryan struggled with that. And I felt greatly for him. I have a heart for people. I just do. It's who I am. And I could feel that he just needed someone to believe in him and someone to care about him. And through time, Ryan kind of became like a son to me. I invested myself in him just as he invested in the shop and in me. It's incredibly rewarding. So there's monetary things you can get from earning from repairing people's vehicles. There's emotional needs as well. I need to feel satisfied at the end of the day that I've completed enough things, that I've contributed, that I've made a difference, whether that's in fixing people's cars or investing in somebody's life. And for me, in the way I'm designed and the way I'm built, the emotional return that I got from investing in Ryan was incredible. And as I said, he kind of became like a son to me.
Mm-hmm.
With lots of quirks and different things. When Ryan came to us, he didn't have any tools. He'd worked for us for a short while. At Christmas, we bought him a toolbox. Like, here you go. I separated a whole ton of different tools that I had out of my own toolbox that I knew that he would use, that I have duplicates and triplicates of stuff. And we set up a whole toolbox. I'm like, this is yours. I'm giving you the toolbox. You can borrow my tools. These are yours. And then the next year, as he continued to grow and invest, Snap-on came around and I spent $10,000 on the Snap-on truck. Here's a brand new toolbox. Here are all your basics and all kinds of different things that you'll need. We filled the box and we made an agreement. I'm like, okay, you work for us for this term, produce quality work, continue investing in yourself. And we made a contract with that. And I said, at the end of this term, these tools are yours. They are no longer mine. You're not caring for them. If you show me that you can care for them and treat them well and not lose them and continue to further yourself, these tools will become yours. And we stuck with that, and he did, and he owns those outright, and those are all his. So to see the sparkle in this kid's eye, to see not only somebody's, you're investing time and you're investing money and resources into him. I mean, he could clearly see, I took money out of my pocket, gave it to him to better his life. And I don't think that many people had done that for him in the past. So that also helped to fuel the drive and desire within him. And it was a very emotionally rewarding relationship. Although, like any relationship, it's difficult separating out boss and employee, father, son, friend kind of things. And he had a girlfriend in his life that kept his life very interesting. People in times of need or times of insecurity, any of us don't necessarily make the best decisions. Whether it's business owners when business gets tough, or employees are difficult, or we have personal struggles in life, we sometimes make the wrong choices and attach to the wrong people. Ryan, in his sense and time of not having a great bit of self-confidence, someone found him and found him interesting, and they started in a relationship. And although she was nice, she was less than stable. The emotional roller coaster that boy went through, there were times that I felt like I was the only stable thing in his life.
So it must have come into work.
Oh, God, did it come into work. So he'd have days where he was elated and the world was wonderful. Those kids waste a ton of time on their phone watching YouTube and stupid things that don't really mean anything. I watched him go on the Snap-on truck and start having a big discussion with our local Snap-on dealer about the metallurgy process used in the development of their wrenches and the alloys and the contents of everything, because he had spent like 6 hours over the weekend researching all that. And the Snap-on dealer is looking at him and going, well, that's $249.75. And it couldn't carry on the same conversation because he was passionately into it. But I've also watched him walk in the door and just see the look of defeat in his eyes, and him not be able to concentrate on a single thing that he was doing because personal turmoil in his life had just destroyed him on the inside. The instabilities that happen either internally with her or between the two of them, I honestly think the characteristic of being a rescuer almost is conveyed. So the investments that I made in him, I think that he was conveying and becoming a rescuer for her.
Oh.
It was almost like a learned behavior. As I invested in him and he felt the rewards of that and the stability of that, he was investing into her. And as I was trying to fix him, he was trying to fix her. And I had, without even realizing it, perpetuated almost a really bad cycle. So they would have pretty emotional events that would happen. He would either not come to work incredibly distraught, or he'd make mistakes. He actually wound up hospitalized a couple of different times because of events that happened between them and because of how emotionally invested he was in them.
I can't imagine what it did to you personally, your business, the environment that you were creating in your business. Personal it really impacts business if you bring it.
The repercussions are far greater than I ever imagined. So what starts out as innocently like, hey, this kid's got a ton of potential. Never, ever overlook that. Always hire for passion, because someone that's passionate will want to learn.
Carm here, and coming up, find out why holding someone accountable actually gives them a sense of security. Hey, Carm here, and the virtual Apex Experience 2020 is in the record books and brought the best and the brightest together to create an experience like no other. Virtual Apex delivered on their commitment to the service professional and provided sessions dedicated to technician and business management training. Apex also presented Joe's Garage with important demos and product knowledge segments, and the first annual Service Professional Awards were presented. Hey, the great news is that all of this was recorded, and it's available on demand on the virtual platform until December 5th, 2020. So if you earn your living in the aftermarket, Apex is definitely for you. Now, sure, SEMA is fun, but you'll learn more and see more that relates to your sales growth, profits, and productivity at Apex. Apex continues to present some of the best aftermarket technician and management trainers. Hey, mark your calendar now for Apex 2021, November 2nd through the 4th in Las Vegas. Listen here to learn when you can start registering. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Shopware's shop management system allows customers to review, approve, and pay for repairs all in one place. Now, 1, your customer views their outstanding balance. Number 2, they are prompted to submit payment directly through their invoice. And 3, Shopware's secure portal facilitates payments right there without having to open another browser or remember another password. It's really that simple. Shopware is your complete solution for contactless service. Let remote pay work for you and improve your customer experience. Get started today. Visit getshopware.com for more information and to request a demo. You watched the passion grow. You watched him get into his job. You watched him talk about metallurgy with Snap-on. You're so proud he's deep in it. Then you saw a disruption in the force.
Yeah, absolutely. I watch his world crumble. And as an employer, I'm concerned because his work quality suddenly suffers greatly. As a mentor, as a surrogate dad, my heart aches for this kid because I see the emotional damage and I see the potential in him and what he could be, but I see the emotional damage that happens to him. It's kind of like when somebody picks on your kids at school and you just want to go into school and raise hell, or you want to find this person and rectify it. But it wasn't my place to do that. So the conflict of I'm his boss, I need to hold him to a standard, and I feel emotionally and personally responsible and I want to help the kid, led me to make some really bad decisions where I followed the dad role more than the boss role. And looking at it from the outside, I created a huge issue within the culture in my shop in doing so. There was bitterness and resentment from some other people, felt that the actions towards him should have been much more aggressive, and they weren't. We ran through cycles. He was great, and then they'd have episodes and it'd be really bad. And then it was great, and then it was really bad. As the relationship progressed, his impulsivity really increased, which the highs and lows became pretty extreme. When you're in any relationship, the things that don't bother you early on, over time kind of bother you. And I realized that I was protecting Ryan and sacrificing the rest of the shop without even realizing, but that's what I was doing. I was compensating for him. I was making his excuses for him without him having to do it because I so wanted to see him be successful that I overlooked things that I never should have overlooked.
The excuses you made was the fact that you ignored what was going on. I mean, how long did it go on that it became such a disruptor? Was it months worth, weeks worth?
He worked for us for almost 5 years, I'd say. And they started little bits early on, and probably 2 years in, things started to go. And there would something a little bit here, and there was a really good period. And there was something a little bit there, and not as long a period. And it was...
So it was a roller coaster.
Yeah. If you wanted to, you could justify every step of the way. You could go, well, that was really bad. But man, look, he's excelled so much in the last 6 months and gained so much skill, and he's getting so much better at this. And then we have another episode and it's like, oh, and then the next period is shorter and the episode's bigger. And then the next period is shorter and then the episodes are bigger. And then I realize he's starting to compromise his values. His passion for it is fading. His desire to produce the best that he can produce versus just get it out the door is changing. There's changes that are happening within his personality.
Did anybody come to you inside the business? Did anybody go to Lisa? I mean, were there any indicators that you had to do something?
Lisa and I had so many conversations about this. I hate to say, because of his emotional highs and lows and things that I knew about him in his past, I actually feared to fire him. There was a point probably 2 years ago where I thought, he's reckless and he has to go. But at the same time, I thought, if I let him go, I saw myself as the only point of stability in his life. And I feared that he would do something drastic. And I kept him on, basically hoping to be able to carry and walk him through that point rather than fearing that he would do something harmful to himself.
Do you think Ryan had as much emotional baggage as you did?
I'm not sure. I can identify what he had and what he carried, and that boy carried a lot. For a young man early in life, he carried a serious burden. I think mine may be different. I carry my own insecurities. I carry a lot of things that just developed through my life that I think I'm still compensating for and trying to make up for, and I invest in other people as a feel good for myself. You get to a point with somebody where you know that something should happen. He knew something should happen. I think that there was a point where if you don't hold somebody accountable, they're almost let down. And I think accountability and boundaries and borders bring safety and security. And I think when those go away, all hell breaks loose. When you know that you should be held accountable to a standard and there's got to be repercussions to that, and the repercussions don't come, then it's kind of like all the rules go to the side and game on. So, well, if he didn't care about that and I didn't get fired for that, well, it's almost turned into, let's see what I can get away with. Then the passion and the caring were gone at that point, because I feel that when that went, that was almost translated into a lack of caring on my part, because I no longer cared enough to hold him to the standard that he should have been held to.
Well, take me to the day that you made the decision to let him go.
A sleepless night. Lisa and I talked for hours about it, and the emotional burden, and still, I think I projected a lot of my feelings into him. We talked and talked and talked and realized it just, for the betterment of everyone involved, needed to rip the bandage off and needed to no longer have him employed there. The culture in the shop was greatly suffering. People that hadn't said anything before, that were just kind of talking among themselves, were making digs and jabs and saying things. And I could see the whole attitude of the shop was down. And I went into work that morning knowing that I had to do something that I did not want to do. And I pulled him to the side, and we had a conversation in which I complimented him on the way that he had grown and the steps that I had seen him take as a person and as a technician, the ways that I had seen him develop as a man, because he was a boy when he came to us and he was a man now. But, even though he was a man, I'm making good decisions. So I tried to build into him the things that I really saw. And then I brought to his attention that, unfortunately, because of things that have happened, choices that have been made, I could no longer continue to employ him. I explained that I could see you've lost your passion. Events have happened here that have taken your passion, your fire away from you. You no longer feel inspired. And I'm no longer able to provide the environment where you are able to personally grow as you're incredibly talented to be able to. And no sooner than I spoke the words to him that I needed to let him go, then a smile emerged on his face. A sense of relief seemed to come over both him and myself. It was like he knew it should have been done a long time ago, and he was burdened with the fact that he needed to show up and come to work in an environment where he no longer felt comfortable or felt that he really should be.
He felt like he wasn't giving you all that he could give you from the early days because of the personal burden that he was carrying. So inside, apparently he knew this day was coming.
Yeah, I think that he wished it had been earlier. And then looking back on it and reflecting, I think my personal disappointments of him not accelerating as he should have probably projected a totally different burden on him as well. And I didn't even realize that I was doing that. So I look at it from my side, just in all honesty, because it's like playing the market last week when GameStop was bouncing all over the place. And you look at it and go, man, if I had invested here, I would have made all this, but I invested there and I lost everything. And stepping back, you look and you realize, you go, I had no idea that my actions, which had the best of intentions, were actually causing a very negative effect. So by my yearning for him to get better, it actually placed more of an emotional burden on him that prevented him from being able to do so. Had I cut it clean months ago, I think we both, actually had I cut it clean a year ago, I think we both emotionally would have been in a better place.
Has this experience prevented you from getting close to people at all?
I'm going to say no.
Okay, good. You got the biggest heart that I know of just about anybody in the industry. And this story went to prove that. And there's thousands of people out there that are going to relate to this story. They get it. They've been there. They've done it. Some of them are happy that they pulled the trigger quicker than you did. But yet again, they may be living today in the world where they have a Ryan in their business.
There are tons of people out there with incredible potential. Don't ever miss the opportunity to invest in somebody that has passion that you can see really good in. Also, at the same time, don't overlook the really obvious signs. I can't fix people. I can fix mechanical things all day long. Something's broken. I can fab something. I can figure it out. I can make something. I can create it. I cannot fix people as hard as I've tried. I'm probably broken in some ways myself, which is why I try to fix people.
You just broke the code. Ryan was just a repair on a toaster or a car, right? And it became much more difficult decision than you ever realized because it was constantly moving. It wasn't, this inanimate object. It's not hard to fix something. You either do it or you don't. A person, there's sometimes it's gray all over.
I related to that really intense diagnostic process. This car comes into your shop and it's just doing some really bizarre things. And you say, I'm going to invest 2 hours in it. I'm going to sell 2 hours worth of diagnostic time. I'm going to fix this car. And you put your best guy on it and he invests 2 hours in it. And at the end of 2 hours, he's like, but his pride in being the best and knowing that he can figure anything out. You're not watching him. Other things are going on. The shop's busy. And before you know it, this guy's got 18, 20, 22 hours into it, a bunch of parts, a bunch of time, all kinds of stuff invested in because there is pride in coming up with the solutions that fixes the car and makes the customer's life better. And at some point in that process, you either find it and fix it, or you say, I have to put my pride aside and I have to cut this thing loose. It's the best thing for the shop. It's the best thing for the customer. It's the best thing for me personally, and I have to cut it loose. And Ryan is a great kid and heavily worth investing in. And I think he's got incredible potential. And when he finds who inspires him next, he's going to go to levels that will make him amazing. But for us both in that situation, I was so yearning to see him succeed. For him and for me, I think I was deeply emotionally invested where part of me needed to see him succeed because that's part of my issues.
In the future, Ryan number 2 walks in the front door. You see some, incredible promise in him or her. You would now recommend to yourself, look in the mirror and says, listen, I'm going to set up some boundaries here. I'm going to put some guidelines for myself. I can't get way over close. With the first sign of something not right, I've got to tackle it. I can't ignore it and accept the fact that, I know too much about his background, so I know why this happened. I mean, you would do it completely differently next time?
So Ryan number 2 currently works in our shop. So we have a younger guy who did an apprenticeship with us, did an internship in high school, and you could see the spark in this kid. He didn't fit into the box or the mold that school was trying to put him in, but I could see the spark and the passion in this kid. He's been with us a year and a half, and this kid has integrated into the team. He has personally, financially, and emotionally invested into our business, just as I've invested into him. And I've realized I made mistakes with Ryan. I did not hold him accountable. I did not have hard conversations with him. I had soft conversations as a friend to get to know him and to emotionally support him, but I never set up boundaries. And this time around, I am absolutely emotionally, personally there for my guys, for any of them. They have personal home issues or whatever. But I'm now being more cautious to put boundaries in place because I realize that by caring without accountability, I actually create more damage than I do good, both for them and for myself. And it's unwittingly, I'm not realizing, but it's actually a reckless behavior. It's like you want your kid to have the cool car that you never had. So you buy your kid or build your kid the really, really cool car that you always wish you had. And he's not learned enough. He's not experienced enough to be able to handle this thing without wrecking the car or hurting himself.
A question about the team. When you let Ryan go, I'm going to make an assumption that they came up to you and says, hey, boss, we were wondering when this was going to happen. And hopefully that did happen and that continued to confirm that you did the right thing. Did you say to your guys, listen, if this ever happens again, please come to me?
Yeah. So collateral damage. I lost 2 really good guys along the way in the process of trying to save Ryan or investing into him. There were 2 guys that became so angry because as you let him get away with stuff that you don't let me get away with. And as I said, I was compensating. I knew that there were certain things going on in his life that they didn't have. And they were right. I held them to a different standard than I did him. And it caused issues, and eventually they left. So I turned a blind eye to very obvious things within my shop. I scorned my team for the emotional investment in one. And not that you don't take personal efforts to really try to bring back when you have somebody on your team and they have issues. Don't just turn your back on them. Do what you can to bring them back in and help them, but at the same time, hold them to the same standards that you did everybody else. So I realized I compensated for him, and I sacrificed everybody else to do so. So I lost good guys, guys that had incredible potential, by making the decisions that I did. And it's not Ryan's fault. It's my fault. I'm the one that made the decision. I have to own that. But the scorn and the backlash that I got from my team was both relief and why the hell didn't you do that sooner?
It's amazing how your people know where the problems in your business are, and you don't think they do. And we sometimes go on to ignore them, as this whole story was about way, way, way too long. And then when you don't have the clear and concise communication with your people, put them over the shoulder, drag them outside the building on a beautiful summer day and says, you still like working here? And then prepare to get an earful.
Another car analogy. I get deep into a running problem on a car, and I'm trying everything I can to fix it. So one of my guys comes over and goes, hey, did you remember to check the fuses? Like, that's stupid. And I go deeper into this running problem, and I'm chasing stuff everywhere. And like, you sure the fuses are okay? You got power and ground? And you get deeper into chasing down this network, and you're pulling wires and you're ripping things apart and you're getting into all kinds of stuff. And somebody goes, hey, fuse 17, there's nothing in there. Somebody took it out because they blew the fuse for the auxiliary port, and they took the fuse out of here and put it in there. And you go, oh my God, I've gone off this crazy tangent, and I was blind to the simple basics and the fundamentals that you have to operate a system. You have to have power in a power and ground circuit. You have to have accountability in a shop. You have to have a clear line of communication. And I have to know enough to not so deeply invest and jump down the rabbit hole that I turned a blind eye to everything else. And my fuse was out, and I was so distracted that I never wanted to see. I never wanted to look at it and go, yeah, I've got to do this. And it hurts to realize the repercussions of what you've done, but you have to man up to it and go, I created this. I created the tension that happens in the rest of the shop. I created and perpetualized the emotional burden. I didn't fix things with him. I think he's a better person now than he was before, but I also put a burden on him that I shouldn't have, because I didn't realize when the time was to cut it. So there's probably a lot of guys that have either people coming in their door that have little physical talent, but a lot of passion, that may not hire them out of fear for things. And the best things that I can say is invest in for passion, but have really safe boundaries. Or you have a guy that comes in the door and he makes a mistake early on. A lot of people are like slow to hire, quick to fire, like boom, 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 and they don't see the value in people. And let me tell you, the potential and the growth in him was incredible. The skills that kid developed were amazing. And I was certain that there were times where I was absolutely certain that there was going to be a point where I was going to step back from the business a little bit, and he was going to go shooting past me and be better than I ever could have been. Without realizing it, I also became the speed bumps in the road and the detours that prevented him from getting there. You can't fix somebody's personal issues outside of work. That was another hard lesson I learned. People have demons in their life sometimes. And what they deal with in an 8 or 10 or 12-hour environment with you at home can be completely unraveled in an hour or two once they leave the shop. So they need to have a stable home environment, or get them into counseling with somebody else that can create that stable home environment. Don't assume that burden on yourself.
Kevin, this was just a great story. I loved how we started. We talked about Disney, which was kind of cool. And then, of course, we got into the big heart and helping people that struggle. It is a great story. It is one that we need to share around the industry because of the 273,000 plus shops that we have in our automotive aftermarket. I can't even imagine that there's not half of them that have had situations like this, continue to struggle with them, and we can help prevent some of that stuff from happening. Not that you would give up on a person, but you sure have to respect the team that you employ, the team that you work with. I mean, a technician who is listening to this will have as much benefit from your story as a shop owner would, yes.
So I started out as a 14-year-old kid that knew nothing, but I loved mechanical stuff. And a gentleman saw a passion within me, and he saw a spark within me, and he took me in, and he taught me everything I knew, and he fueled that fire within me and guided me. And I got to thank Art, because more than once he literally kicked me in the ass in the shop, because you could do that in the 80s when somebody was slightly out of line. He'd come up behind me and would literally kick me like, hey. That man held me accountable, but he taught me things that I never would have thought to learn or to look at things or approach. So I think because somebody has emotionally invested into me, and I've seen my personal rewards from that I continue to perpetuate that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of guys that may have started out like I did, where somebody saw something within them, whether it's their dad's shop and they grew into it, or they started out, checking air pressure and on tires out of the gas pumps, and somebody said, hey kid, you got a talent. Let's get in here and do this. So I think it's easy to bring people in. And I think the hard part is the accountability. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. Some people are really good at holding people accountable and have no problem facing things. And I struggle at times with, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, and I don't feel good about it myself. I have to go, hey, this isn't working right, or I can't tolerate this, or you can't do this anymore.
I am so appreciative that you brought your story. So not only do I have to thank Kevin Eckler from Foreign Car Specialists in Poughkeepsie, New York for being here today, I have to thank Art for giving you your chance and for guiding you to the point where you're a hell of a great person inside of our great automotive aftermarket. So as always, Kevin, stay in touch with me and continue to bring me these wonderful stories.
Yeah, I will gladly share my heart if it keeps one person safe. We talk about how hard it is to find a tech. The last thing you want to do is drive good ones out of your shop because you made a bad decision for one of them.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Carm. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.